Welcome to Reunite with Self podcast. I'm your host, Ruken. Here, we will be discovering and unraveling what is truly holding you back. We will put the puzzle together and give you clarity on how and what you can do to create massive shifts in your life so you start creating the life you always envisioned for yourself. No more waiting. Whether it is liberating from dysfunctional family patterns or parenting tools and tips that actually make the difference, we will be diving into the truth and core of things that are simple and yet which no one talks about. I will be sharing with you all the things that would have changed my life massively if I heard any one of these episodes. A new world is awakening, and true bliss, harmony, and peace is possible on this earth. And my mission is to bring you closer to that, one step at a time. In this safe space, I will hold your hand and give you courage and certainty that you can shift anything and everything in your life. It is time we break the pattern. Whether you want to be the parent you never had or make a shift in your life so you don't play small any longer, you will find the support and guidance in this space. My intention is for you to find your own answers within yourself while you listen to this podcast, so you feel the bliss of reuniting with your true essence, with self, with so much love and compassion and courage. From my heart to yours, let's keep it rocking. My gorgeous listener, welcome to another episode on Reunite with Self podcast. This is your host, Ruken. I want to talk to you about something that I see a lot as a pattern, especially on not just parents, but people with narcissistic tendency, just in general, like all types of different narcissistic people have the tendency to play the victim. And I want to talk to you today about something that really plays a role in how narcissistic people manipulate others around them. And it is through the narrative of being a victim. So how playing the victim, how the person who plays the victim can be actually the cruelest. I want to talk to you about this today because I have realized something that is really wild, that when you look at the narcissistic people who has a tendency to play the victim in different shapes and different ways, because playing the victim can look a lot of different things. It can look really different and it can play out very different. So it doesn't have to look like someone who seems weak. Okay, so this is very important for me because I have like both sides, like both examples of in my family, my extended family too. It's how someone who plays and who are extremely manipulative, who plays like, I don't know, shit, like who plays like they are weak, that play the victim and super manipulative, super manipulative. And also I have seen and witnessed people who seem to be grand and, confident and strong and still can play the victim in certain areas to manipulate, especially their children. So it doesn't have to look a certain scenario. I just wanted to say this just so that for a chance for bringing something to consciousness if you need to. And I have realized that how the narcissist can use being the victim or playing the victim as a way to manipulate. And in doing so, they are actually cruelest than the cruel, like cruelest than what they're victim of that they're saying. So it's really wild. We have to understand the narcissist who plays the victim, their narcissism is not a result of the narcissistic abuse that they had. We have to understand this. It is only an excuse. Okay? Because, as you know by now for sure, that someone who has narcissistic abuse can be a totally empathic, compassionate, loving person, but also maybe playing small and not like living up to their potential and all of that. And this is why I'm doing this podcast, to shift that for you completely, for all the compassionate, empathic souls to truly start living their truest expression, self-actualize, and play full out in their lives and start their true journey on this earth. But also, when some people have narcissistic abuse, and it can be smaller than the other example that I gave you, they can have, it doesn't have to be as severe, but they can have narcissistic abuse, and the result is that they become narcissistic. But it is not the reason for their narcissism. It is a choice. It is a choice. I am seeing this gorgeous sunset right now. It's so beautiful. The sky is like pink and blue, and it's so euphoric. It's beautiful. So let's talk about the dangers of and the consequences of someone playing the victim. I never believe in playing the victim. Never. And I believe that we should never be in the mentality of a victim and never use the language of the victim, never. And we can still own everything that we experience, what we were exposed to and all of that. We can still own the experience 100%, but still not be in the victim mentality. And we can talk about this maybe on another podcast episode, but I want to talk to you about today how it plays out. What are the consequences? What are the dangers of someone playing the victim? How this pans out when someone has a narcissistic tendency and one of their ways to get what they want and manipulate is playing the victim in different ways. The first one is that the danger of this is that they would not take responsibility of their life. And I mean as an adult. And we will talk about how this pans out when you have a narcissistic parent and how their relationship is with their child, beginning from them being a toddler. The conversation is always the narrative is always the same. So they would not take responsibility of their life. And the second thing is that they would not take responsibility of themselves and their behavior. So they are not accountable for their own BS behavior because they believe whatever they have going on in whatever area of their life, or whatever they had in whatever area of their life, or whatever they're having in an area of their life, is the result, gives them the excuse to behave and do whatever they're doing. So the next thing is that, and I'm going to make this all clear together. And the next thing is that, and this makes so much sense, they would be lost in their field, in their head. And they would be lost in their, I can't even say emotions, but they're lost in their head, in their field, to be the cruelest to their closest, especially to the empaths around them, to the vulnerable around them, that they're their child as a toddler, as a kid, they're vulnerable. They can be the cruelest to their closest because they're lost in their head, because they're the victim. And another thing about narcissist who has the tendency to play the victim is that they would not have the interest for introspection, or they don't have the interest to feel the feeling, which is really ironic and wild. Instead of owning the emotion, they're great at dumping it onto their kids. And I want to give you an example of like how babies are sponges, so that you can maybe understand deeper on how someone with narcissistic abuse who has the tendency to play the victim can really, really be cruel to their child and dump on so much of their energy and their emotion instead of feeling the emotion. And I want to say this when I say they're not interested in feeling the feeling, because if you feel the feeling, you have a chance to like turn that into something else. Feeling the feeling takes courage and strength. But just being lost in your mind and being in the mentality of the victim, they actually don't feel the exact feeling of whatever their trauma is. They don't go into the trauma and feel it. They have closed their heart decades ago. They have closed their heart. So they don't even feel the hurt. They don't feel the hurt that they transfer either. They basically transfer their own pain that they're not willing to feel. They closed their heart years ago, decades ago. And I want to give you a very interesting example of something that I have just realized. I was like, this was so random. Not random for sure, but this was something that I knew, but I didn't put it into this context, that babies are like sponges. And they say that like when a baby from the age of like 0 to especially like 3, whenever like they're really babies, they're toddlers, especially when they're born, like the first couple of years, they feel the highest emotions in the house without even being close, like to the person, like without being next to the parent. They feel the highs. They're like sponges. They receive all the highest emotions in the house. So they don't need to be like in the embrace of their mother if they're feeling whatever for their partner. They feel the highest emotions in the house, like no matter what. And I want you to imagine, like, I'm sure you had a similar experience, but this is just an example of how babies are like sponges. Like they're so open anyway. So that's why, like, we have to be open to the fact that people get affected by a lot of things when they're babies. So we have to be like open as parents. If someone, our adult child, wants to express something about whatever they went through as a toddler, like something they remember vaguely, or maybe they might want to ask a question like, did you have any problem about this? Or like, was this happening in our household? Like, somehow if they start remembering some of the energies or the feelings. But I want to tell you this example, which is so wild. Imagine like giving a surprise party to someone, and you're waiting for the birthday person to enter the house. So there is a lot of emotions, right? That the emotions are really heightened, like different kinds of emotions, I'm sure, in that crowd that is waiting for the birthday person to enter the room so they can surprise the person who comes in. This is just a random example that I saw in a YouTube like short, and it's not nothing to do with this, by the way. It was like an influencer sharing their like birthday. So this has nothing to do with this, like, you know, emotions and self-help and self-development stuff. When the person enters the room and everyone shouts, like it doesn't even need to be loud, by the way, but everyone reacts in a way like surprise. The person enters, the person feels a lot of emotions. Maybe they're not ready for it. Maybe they're excited, maybe they're nervous, maybe they're anxious, maybe they were going through something, maybe they were like feeling some kind of emotions because it's their birthday. Like there is a lot of emotions. And also in the crowd, people who are waiting. We don't know like what's happening in everyone's mind, right? So in those moments of heightened emotions by adults, and it's not a fight, it's not like super loud, like it has nothing to do with that. Everyone seems to be happy. That's what it looks like from outside. But that's not like what everyone experiences in that moment. And they can be too. But in those moments, if there's a baby in the crowd, he or she starts crying. When the person enters, you say surprise, and you feel like it's a happy moment and everybody's chilled and peaceful and happy. But the baby starts crying and you're like, oh, like he or she got scared. Like that's not why. It's not like they don't start crying because you're loud. They cry because they don't know how to handle the emotions that they're transferred to. And another example that I heard from someone, which is really interesting, I heard this in Turkish, but I know it applies to a lot of cultures, and it's really, really wild. It's crazy. That a mom and dad, like a mother and a father figure, they don't need to be like, it doesn't matter wife or husband, but their mother and father, they usually fight when the kids are at home. Their fights are usually really short and not that big when the kids are not home. They usually fight when the kids are home. This is because, or when they're maybe a toddler, they're in the room and they start fighting in front of the child. This is because they can transfer their emotion to their child so that they get a little bit of like relief. But the child does not know what to do with that feeling. So if we see a kid acting out, a kid super, what is that called? Like super active. I can't remember but they're like running around the house. If we see a kid, I'm not even talking about like introverted kid. I'm talking about seemingly extroverted, very active kids. We cannot like just assume they're just like that. Because kids run around the house, kids do like different movements and stretch and things like that, just in order to be able to like handle the emotions that they're transferred to. It's not theirs, but they're like sponges, and parents know this. And that's why a mom and a dad usually fight when the kid is at home. This is so crazy because their fights are not even that juicy for them. It doesn't even last that long when there's no one at home that they can transfer their emotions to. Super crazy, but we just have to be like conscious of this stuff. And another thing about narcissists who have the victim mentality is that they're not reliable. They always have an excuse to disappoint you, to let you down, pull the rug out from under, and just not be accountable. You can't count on them for anything if they're in the victim mentality, because there can always be an excuse for them to let you down. So this creates distrust, but it can seem very different things for different people. It can seem just one example that is not like, the first thing that comes to your mind, so that like there is always different ways that this can pan out. Like if you have a narcissistic parent, that distrust can look like someone from outside, a relative, an extended family member, a neighbor, like a friend, a family friend, comes, visits your house, and the parent says something about you in front of them that is not okay. They say something judgmental, critical, questionable, disempowering something they say to them about you or to you in front of them. This is disrespectful too, but this creates distrust because you can't count on them. There is no vault, like Brené Brown says, like you can't count on them. It's not. There is no true trust. You can't feel safe around them. So this is another way that someone with a victim mentality can be controlling, manipulative, and just distrustful. And how it looks like when this is apparent is that instead of being emotionally mature and owning the consequences of their choices in their lives, of their own decisions in their lives, be it their work situation, their relationship, their marriage, whatever it is, like they're adults, they make choices, and they're living the consequences of their choices, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be in their control, but we have to be accountable for our own lives. We have to take ownership of our lives, and we have to understand that we are responsible for our lives. And instead of doing this, they make it sound like how much their child will support them, help them, accommodate them, service to their narcissism, whatever it is, or, whatever it is, will show their child's mercy and compassion. But instead, like, they are being totally cruel and manipulative. It doesn't show how much the child has compassion or mercy. It shows how much the parent does not have compassion or mercy or true love, really. Because it might be like, what I mean by this is that, we are responsible for our own lives, and whatever hardships we go through has nothing to do with our child. It applies to your child, to your child and your adult child. Doesn't, like, both, because they do it in both ways, in both circumstances. They make it seem like, oh, if you help me on this, how much you support me on this, how much you save me from this, because I am the victim, will show how much you have love for me, will show how much of a lucky parent I am because my kid takes responsibility and saves me and loves me and whatever. This has actually nothing to do with your love for them. You actually never have the responsibility, especially starting like as a child, as a toddler, to accommodate them in any way. You don't have the responsibility to save them. And it just shows not how much you love them or not. It just shows how much of cruelty that they have, how much of mercy that they don't have, how much empathy that they don't have for their child. So it's really crazy. So when you have the victim mentality, everything is happening to you. So that's why you don't take accountability of your own life, and you don't say that, okay, this might be happening, but this is my life. Like, this has nothing to do with my child. My job might be stressful. My work might be stressful, but this is my choice. Like, I am doing it for myself eventually. We never do anything for others. We first do it for ourselves. Even if we are doing it for someone else, we are still doing it for ourselves, for whatever emotion it will give us. Like, true honesty, true compassion, true empathy requires like so much true honesty. And no one is a victim. And as an adult, if we have kids, we have to take ownership of our own lives and see that our kids have nothing to do with it. And they don't have any responsibility for any of the things that they do or don't do to save us. And it just shows how cruel the narcissist is. So I wanted to do this like a shorter version of an episode just to open this conversation because this is so interesting. What I have found is that, or this can look like a manipulative, it doesn't have to be a parent, but just this manipulative, oh, I don't know anything. I don't know what to, I don't know what to do about this. I'm not knowledgeable. Maybe I'm not even worthy, but they can be the most cruel people with total void of empathy, compassion, true love, and they can be the most manipulative in their act of the victim, but they're actually the villain, not the victim. So I'll leave you with this today. I love you so much. Please let me know if you have any questions for me. You can DM me on my Instagram. It's in the show notes. I love you so much. I'll see you next week. My gorgeous listener, if you had any takeaways from this episode or from this podcast in general, I would love to know. Please share this episode with a few loved ones right now. You never know how they can benefit from something so small. And please take a screenshot of this episode and share on IG, tagging me at Khewela. That is Khewella. Khewela. That is my goddess wear brand, my Instagram page. I would love to know what your takeaway was or something you found inspirational or a confirmation you believe in as well. That would make my day. And you can always DM me if you have a topic or a certain question in mind that you want me to talk about. And give me a 5-star rating if you feel like it. That would help this podcast immensely to get the word out. I love you. See you on the next one. I want to see you shine your brightest.